Apple held its first product launch of the year on Wednesday, and it's a new addition to the iPhone line. Joining us now to talk more about this latest Apple launch is Maribel Lopez. She's the founder and principal analyst at Lopez Research. Maribel, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Now, Apple has faced more and more competition from Google and Samsung in recent years. Is this iPhone 16e signalling a renewed push into the budget smartphone market to compete with these brands?
If you look at where Apple innovation has been going, it's increasingly moving towards the concept of AI and Apple Intelligence. Really, the 16 SE was not going to be the platform for that. This is trying to bring Apple Intelligence to everybody, and in order to do that, it needed a new chip and a full refresh, which they gave it.
Right. And how have investors and fans reacted to these products, especially the 16e? Are the developments big enough for Apple at this time?
Well, typically investors and tech enthusiasts are not very excited with the original Apple launches. What we're seeing happen here is this is technically the iPhone for everyone and anyone that wants an iPhone, that wants to move into Apple Intelligence, that is going to have a camera that is good enough, perhaps not the best camera. It is quite a bit more expensive. We're looking at about a 40% uplift to move into this new era of iPhone. But I think what's going to happen is that what really matters, the people that want to actually purchase the phone, they're going to be pleased with these announcements.
And Apple's business in EU and China are likely the biggest hurdles in terms of growth down the line. Will the latest tariffs on China impact the US consumer when it comes to these Apple products?
I think the latest tariffs, when you look at China versus what's been proposed for the rest of the world, has actually not been quite as aggressive. I still consider this to be a bit of a negotiation between the US and China. But there's always the opportunity, though, when you introduce tariffs, that there will be an increase in price. At a $599 price point, I don't think we saw that in this phone in the US. What we really saw is that the introduction of the A18 chip, which is in a flagship phone, is now in the E version of the phone, and that matters. We also saw a new modem, which allowed them to maybe have a little bit of leeway in terms of the pricing because it's their modem at this point in time. So this is really a delicate balancing act for Apple and how they can take into account the tariffs that they might be seeing in the future as headwinds, but also try to make sure that they're not giving a degraded experience to any consumer in the Apple portfolio. So this was a delicate balance. It's one of those things that you're not sure if the market's really going to get, and it has to play out in the actual quarterly numbers to see what the sales are before people are going to believe that this was a real good move for the company.
So where does the company stand in regards to AI developments, especially in comparison to its competitors like Google and Samsung? Is Apple leading the way in this space?
So what we've seen is tremendous innovation from Google and Samsung. They've fundamentally been pushing the envelope in terms of AI, in terms of form factors. Apple has always taken a much more measured approach. What are people really going to use? What type of chips do we need to support that? So we're not seeing them overstep in AI. You know, they spend a lot more time trying to talk about how we're going to do this in a private way, how we're going to leverage or not leverage your data. So they're really just focusing on different things and trying to create a much more seamless experience. So rather than say, hey, we're building the biggest, greatest models, the biggest, greatest chips, occasionally it might sound like they're going there, but really what they're trying to do is AI innovation that matters for the average consumer, not necessarily the tech enthusiast that fully wants to blow the doors off and push the envelope. That's where I think a lot of companies go to a Google or a Samsung, but even still, the usability for a lot of Apple products in the global scale can't be beat.
Can you talk a little bit about the ongoing privacy concerns with Apple and some of the lawsuits associated, just for the viewers that might not be aware?
Yeah, what we're seeing is a lot of discussion of what data is being used, how it's being used by Apple and all the other companies that are doing AI right now. So there's a lot of discussion about, do customers really understand what type of privacy settings they need to have, what they say about sharing data. I think consumers are actually very much into the click, 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 let's just give it all away. And now that we're starting to get into this very deeply personal intelligence, Apple even called it personal intelligence in their launch, I think consumers need to take a closer look at where this data is going. So there have been several lawsuits, actually lawsuits across the board for almost everyone that does AI right now, in terms of what data you're collecting, how that's being used, has it been anonymized. The regulations on that vary dramatically depending on whether or not you're in the US, EU, various countries in Asia. So it's a very dynamic landscape right now, and I think Apple's struggled as much as anybody to navigate it, particularly since they were the ones that originally said that they were promoting privacy at a very high degree. What I would say is happening, though, everybody's being very concerned to make sure that they're not the one that's going to be hung out to dry because they've lost a lot of customer data.
All right, we'll leave it there. Maribel Lopez, thank you very much.